tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to use the right screen, document, and slide dimensions in your video creation workflow. Now this is important because you don't want to get black bars at the tops and bottom or the left and right in Screenflow. Those black bars at the top and bottom at least are okay if it's the device itself that is doing that because of the size of the video. But where you really don't want them is on the sides. Okay, so we're going to look at getting the right settings so that that won't happen. So to begin with, what we need to do is we need to establish some ground rules for ourselves when we record, and that is we need to think of the entire workflow process. So if we are using Keynote or any form of slides, we need to make sure that the dimensions used in those slides will be the same as the screen recording dimensions and any other media that we want to bring into Screenflow. And ultimately, we can only have one canvas dimension. So this is the canvas. And if I click down here on this little crop icon, which lets us resize the canvas, we can see that the canvas dimensions on this particular document I have open in Screenflow are 1280 by 800. Those dimensions are the dimensions of my max screen from, left to right, top to bottom. However, that is not a proper 16:9 ratio. Okay, 16:9 ratio is the sort of the standard for widescreen, generally speaking. And so you want to use one of the standard measurements. So I'm just going to show you another Screenflow document that I have open. So if you can see up here, this one is 1280 by 720, and you can see there are no bars. It just perfectly fits the canvas. So this is what we're aiming for with everything that we do. But if you are recording from your max screen, like I am right now, then we are actually recording a bit of extra height, and we want to not do that. Now that extra height is actually our dock, and that tends not to be important in a tutorial. So I'm going to show you what settings to use. Now, firstly, we have to work out, just in case you have a machine that's different than mine, what your actual screen dimensions are. So to do that, come up to the apple here and click on it. Then click on About This Mac. And you can see in the overview here, I've got a 13-inch MacBook, okay? It's not one of the newer ones. If I then click on Displays, right now, all I have is my built-in display. I've unplugged my bigger screen because for the purposes of this tutorial, I just want to show you how many people get that problem of black bars or the inconsistent screen dimensions. So right now we can see that it's 1280 by 800. Newer machines will be at a higher resolution, and if you do have a plugged-in screen, then that would sit as one of the options here. So the screen I normally record with is 1920 by 1080 pixels. So that is a perfect 16:9 ratio, but it is larger than 1280 by 720, which is what we're aiming to record with right now, and which is also the size of the canvas we see in the background here. Now that is high definition, and that is definitely good enough if that is the highest resolution you can actually have on your laptop. Okay, so we've established where to find what our resolution is. Now what we need to do is tell Screenflow what area of our screen we want to record so that we can make sure we are recording at a 16:9 ratio and not at this 1280 by 800. Now, right now, as I'm recording this, I'm recording myself about to record. So that means that you currently are seeing my whole screen, including my dock, which means there will be black bars or video cut off. But that's necessary in order for me to show you what not to do. Okay, so coming back to Screenflow, we have worked out that we want to record at 1280 by 720 pixels. Okay, so you can come up here, so say you've opened Screenflow, come up here and there is the camera icon here. There are two ways, by the way, that you can start a new recording. One is from the camera icon up here, and the other is by coming up to File and then New. Okay, but for now, I just want to show you the camera icon way. They both end up in the same place, but I just want to show you this because it's kind of easier to get to in a way, and it gives us our options straight away. So I've clicked on that. Now, if I were to record right now, I'm not 100% certain what it would record. It might record my entire screen, in which case we're not recording at the 16:9 ratio we want. So what I'm going to do is configure recording. Okay, and then this dialog box opens up. So right now I have just my one screen to choose from, but if you had one plugged in, that would be an option. Now, this is what we would tick if we wanted to record from our FaceTime camera or any other camera plugged in. So I'll just show you right now by clicking on that. I haven't got optimum lighting set up right now because I don't particularly want to record my face all the time. Also because it's not actually necessary, you know, for a tech tutorial. I don't really want my face and, you know, part of my body sitting at the bottom of the screen all the time, taking up important, you know, landscape. So, but what we can see here is that it's 1280 by 720, which is that 16:9 ratio we're aiming for. And if I click on that, you can see that you could go with smaller options there. But if you did want to record, this would be the one to go for, 1280 by 720 or higher if you can. But again, remembering to stick to 16:9. I'm just going to untick that for now. We would choose where to record our audio from, you know, a built-in mic or a plugged-in USB microphone if you have one. I also have a Snowball microphone, but I'm actually doing this as a test to show you what the audio is like with the built-in microphone. Now, please also be aware that my voice is a bit raspy because I have been doing lots of recording, so I do apologize. Then also, if we wanted to record any computer audio, say you're interviewing somebody, you know, it's a video call or something, and you want to record what they say, then you could select this little box here. Then over here, record desktop frame rate. You can leave that at 30 FPS. There's no real need to go higher than that because normally there isn't a huge amount of movement on your screen, but you could just test with different settings to see what suits you. And then the timeline frame rate is good at 60 FPS because that actually lets you zoom in more on the timeline. So I would leave those like that or set them to that if they're not already like that. And then on this little dotted square, this is where we get to choose what we want to record, whether the entire screen or, you know, different areas of it. So I'm going to click on that. And we can see that that Screenflow has decided it's going to just open up kind of here on the bottom left. So I'm going to click on the square to see what that is and to tell Screenflow that no, I don't want it to record that weird little rectangle down there. Okay, so we can see that that is 640 by 400. If I select screen dimensions, that now covers my entire screen, but again, remember that's 1280 by 800 and we don't want that. We want 1280 by 720 because we need that 16:9 ratio. So click on it again and 1280 by 720, and you can see that the little dotted line now moves up here so that our whole area that we're going to record is kind of highlighted. And then we're ready to go. So we can then click record, and before I do, I'll just tell you that it'll count down. Now, the default countdown for Screenflow is 5 seconds, but you can change that in the preferences panel, which will be covered in a different tutorial. Mine is set to 3 seconds because 5 seconds is an eternity. So I'm going to hit record. Okay, so let's say we've finished recording whatever we wanted to show. We can then come up here to the Screenflow icon, click on it, and stop record. Now, because I already have 2 Screenflow documents open, I get this notification, recording complete, and I'm asked, do I want to create a new document or do I want to add my recording to one of the open documents? If you have nothing open and you just did a recording, Screenflow would immediately create a new document, open it, and put the recorded clips directly in the timeline. But right now we're being asked what we want to do. So I'll just show you that if I were to add it to the document, I could select which document I want to add it to. I could name the clip, and I could choose to either add it directly to the timeline of one of those documents, or if I don't tick that, it'll just go over here into the media library only and not into the timeline down here, and I would just simply have to then drag them into the timeline. But for now, I want to show you what happens when we do a create new document. So I'm going to say OK. So now we'll see what it's done is it's put our fake audio, because we obviously didn't really do anything, at the top and the screen recording at the bottom. My personal preference is to always just keep audio at the bottom, because as you do your editing, you'll be adding other things and slicing things up and everything, and you'll be adding upwards in the timeline, and so everything that we see here will go further down as new tracks are added above. So as we can see right here, here is what we just recorded. Now, to double check what resolution it recorded at, I'm going to click on that crop icon, and we can see that it recorded at 1280 by 720, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, if for any reason we did want to change the dimensions of the canvas, we could overtype these boxes, or we could come to this preset section here and click on the drop down, and we could choose from these. Okay, so even though, please note, even though you could choose 1920 by 1080, which I'll choose just to show you, and then I'll just zoom like that. I'm just using my trackpad to zoom. You'll see that now our canvas is outlined with a white line, but you can see how small that looks in it. So we would have to just say yes, we did want that. We would click the green tick, then it's changed the size of our canvas. We could click on that and then drag it out, and we'd see that it perfectly fits because it is the same ratio. Yes, it's a different size, but it is the same ratio. But we want to avoid doing that ideally. We want to keep everything that we record and our canvas at the same sizes. So I'm going to return it to what it was by doing Command Z, or Command Z if you prefer. Okay, so now we're back to the proper size canvas. So what we've seen is how to tell Screenflow to record a particular section. So as we can see, there is no dock showing here, but the great thing is we have the perfect ratio that we're looking for. And then lastly, to make sure that our slides, if we're using them, are being done at the correct size, for this tutorial, will be using Keynote to show you, but you may be using something else altogether. So if I select Keynote, you'll see that I have a slide here, Now we want to just check what its ratio is. So we're going to come up to Document and click on it. Come down, we'll see that it is widescreen. So then click on that and come down to Custom Slide Size. And we'll see that it's currently set to that higher 16:9 high definition. We want to make this the same size as Screenflow's canvas and the test recording we did. So I'm going to overtype this with 1280 and then tab across to the next box and type 720, and you can either hit enter or click OK. And it tends to zoom in Keynote. So here we go, we've got this, we can see that it's 1280 by 720. If we export this and then bring it into Screenflow, we will see that it fits that screen that we just recorded perfectly. So I will just export it now and then bring it in there to show you. Okay, so we're back in Screenflow and I've just brought in that slide that we exported. So if we just imagine that this is a fully finished Keynote presentation, which could consist of 100 slides, exported as a video, or it could just be what it actually is, which is just a single slide. And I'm going to put this in the timeline. So I'm just going to shrink my timeline by coming down to the slider here and drag that to the left just to give myself a bit more space. Then I'm going to drag this down here, and now you'll notice that nothing has changed in the canvas yet. That's because the red scrubber or playhead is right back at the beginning. Now I can click on it and drag it all the way across here. That's one way to get to it, but that's just the long way. So if it were back at the beginning, another way that I could get to where we want to go is by simply hovering above the timeline between all the seconds that we see and clicking on that. And then we get to see that it perfectly fits the screen. The canvas. So there we have it. That is how we get the right settings. We check up here in About This Mac. We note our screen. If it is a perfect 16:9 ratio, if your machine is different to mine, then that's great. Otherwise, be sure not to record it 1280 by 800 because you don't need your dock. You would then go into Screenflow, you would set up a new recording, and you would make sure to choose 1280 by 720 or higher if you can. And then whether it's Keynote or PowerPoint or anything else, you would make sure that the aspect ratio of those slides match. Okay, so everything needs to match in order to get everything sitting in a nice, smart 16:9 ratio canvas. And then when you export this project here as a video, it'll play smartly in any device, and any black bars will be down to those devices' dimensions, not down to your video. Okay, and most devices are some form of widescreen and if not actually perfect 16:9 ratio. And lastly, just to confirm, the reason you are seeing black bars in this video now is because in order to show you how to do everything properly, I had to record my entire screen. And then within that, show you how not to record your entire screen. So I hope that's been helpful for you. That is the end of this tutorial. I will see you in another one.